Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hire and Fire podcast. I am Jeremy Miller, your host. We are sponsored by Pirate Consulting, and we are co-hosted by Amanda Anderson. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Hello. We are going to be diving into empathy today. All of you non-sympathetic assholes out there need to listen up. Because we're gonna
turn up the volume.
We're gonna focus on managing with empathy, and there's so many different directions we can go, and we're looking forward to it. Some people are really good at this, arguably too so. Like they let themselves get walked on, and then other managers are the exact opposite, right? So we'll dive into that. No matter when you're listening to this, we're going to be dropping a new show soon, focused on one of our skill sets, our quarterly skill sets for IT on project managers. We had a really, really cool guest in Mary Cosgrove recently. Definitely check that out. She is super smart and really good listen in regards to that field, whether you're in it or not.
And then also, if you could hit subscribe or follow. We love to be consistent on when we post, but we're not. So if you follow, you'll get fine. You'll get a notification when we drop these too, so that you can at least get that notification.
Absolutely. Hit us up on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. The list goes on. You know what they are. And we love feedback. And I'll be honest with you, this is the one thing about doing this that blows me away. When I first started looking into this a few years ago, any how-to type thing was basically, if you're going to do podcasts, videos, blogs, buckle up because the feedback's going to be aggressive.
Yeah. And they're all going to make fun of you.
Right.
We
haven't got much.
Right.
Rip me, damn it. I'm rippable. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Or compliment us. Or maybe there's something about the show that you like that we aren't doing enough of or whatnot.
I know sometimes some stuff we like skim over or like go too quickly maybe.
Totally.
We'd love to know.
Totally. So. I'm happy with the feedback that we have got. We appreciate you listeners out there, and we know you're there, which is really cool. We're honored for that. Share us around. We love being intelligent, thoughtful, and deliberate on what we're doing with the staffing industry, with the occasional F-bomb and shenanigans on top of it, because we think that's important to stay real. So, anywho,
that's how we talk normally.
That is how we talk. Correct. Speaking of which, I was teasing one of my daughters the other night because she is superfluously using the F-bomb. So much so that you can't not see it, right? So
I have uncles like that.
Yeah. I was helping her, like, you can swear if you want. I just, wanted you to know that it doesn't stick as much if you use it 38 times an hour. You know what I mean? Well, plus, can you please stop swearing in front of my 4-year-old? It's not exactly working for me.
Right. And I don't think it has the effect. Yeah, kind of like you said, it doesn't have the effect that she's probably going for. No and you get to the point where you just say it without thinking then too. Yeah. And it's just all the time.
Do you have any crutch words that you notice on your own self? If you're thinking, I can answer, but if you want to go
I'm
ahead.
Thinking.
Okay. I noticed, I forget where it was a week or two ago. I used the word obviously in a setting at least a dozen times. And it was the first time that I kind of noticed it. And now every time I say it, it's starting to bother me. And we all have those.
Gosh, I don't know. Have you noticed any of mine?
No.
Mine are very...
Maybe I'll pay attention.
Pay attention. Mine have to do with what I've read recently. So remember when I researched transferable skills and then I said it 87 times that next day?
Yeah.
I feel like mine's very situational. Like I read something and now I'm just going to up about it for 3 days until I read something new.
That's cool though. At least you're finding something new and you don't do it, use the same topic forever. When we first started the company and we were hiring people, one of the phrases that I would use is intellectually honest. And I like that, where you're trying to be just thoughtfully, intentionally truthful, right? And that's a big thing for me, where I think a lot of people lie more than they know, and even just little white lies when they don't even have to, right?
Sure.
So, but I like that phrase in and of itself. For some reason, one of my employees liked it too. So he started using it. Not a problem, whatever. I don't have this thing copyrighted, but I noticed after he started using it that I didn't want to use it anymore. Even though it was attributed as Jeremy's quote, quote unquote, intellectually honest.
It's so distinct that you kind of do get where it's yours.
A little bit.
It's not like saying like, well, ironic. That's ironic.
Yeah.
Like that's
Don't you
pretty
think?
generic. But that's a pretty specific
Yeah.
niche comment that, yeah, it'd be weird if someone else took over your trademarked
Yeah.
saying.
Right. Yeah. Quit stealing my words. I have plenty of words. I should use less. So empathy is what we're going to be talking about today with managing. So this is more of like a generic management topic. We have a little bit of a cycle. We go through some of the technology skill sets that we work on once a quarter. We'll go through some basic kind of job search-ish type things like resumes and interviewing skills. We've done those shows. And then this happens to be more of a kind of a management business skill, life skill type discussion. And you actually were pleasantly surprised by kind of the research that you did a little bit. You want to share a quick tidbit?
Yeah. So for those of you who do listen to us, you know that I'm kind of the researcher. I like to have a few articles in hand.
All four of those people are nodding right now.
They are nodding. Hi, guys. So initially I started to do some research and everything was very fluff piece, right? Like here are
cheesy bullshit.
4 ways to implement empathy or foster an empathetic environment or whatever. And it was all, like I was telling you, Jeremy, it was sunshine and rainbows and how it's all great. And I was just...
Make eye contact. Say phrases like, I understand.
Yeah. And like put
I
yourself
too have
in
been
their
there
shoes.
before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, there has to be
didn't
more.
stick.
There has to be more to this. I need something with some meat and potatoes, like some substance. And so I started to Google the opposite of like empathy doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or, failed empathetic initiatives,
sucks.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't remember what I searched,
but
I went for the opposite side of it. And I came across this article that I'm going to be referencing today. If you want to look it up, it's actually very interesting. It's called "Companies Are Embracing Empathy to Keep Employees Happy. It's Not That Easy." And it's brand new. It's from July of 2021. And it's by Helen Peterson. So the reason I like this article is that it wasn't a fluff piece.
And they're right. It's not that easy.
And they really dove into the crux of why this is not easy to scale and to implement, and that corporations love initiatives, right? Like we had a health one in the early 2010s, early 20-teens, whatever you want to call them, of like everyone got a free Fitbit, remember? And you had to go to the gym membership and it gave you a discount on your health insurance. And it was like health. That was a massive initiative in that time period. And then as soon as we had the George Floyd situation, then it was DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
And actually a little before that was when it got popular to like hit up your employer for fundraising efforts. Like all of a sudden it wasn't taboo anymore because companies want to give back, blah, blah, blah.
You want to give back and all. So they have these initiatives. And so post-pandemic, the current one is empathy. And this is the initiative that has been really pushed through companies. And I didn't know that. I know that it's all over LinkedIn. I kind of live on LinkedIn for us.
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. And so, this is where I live. I read articles, I share stuff. And I mean, every single day there's some article or something about empathy from all kinds of different angles.
Before this, you see it regularly.
100%.
Okay, got it.
So I already knew. Yep, I already knew this is a massive thing that they're talking about. I personally, whether we go that route or not, I personally was in need of some empathy this past year, and so it also sparked.
You mean you needed some, or you wanted to add more into your life?
I had a situation where I was in need of empathy and received it.
Yeah.
But it was top of mind for me anyway, on top of the fact that these articles were all over. Mm-hmm. So hence why we kind of got here to this topic.
Let's start really, really quick with some basics because everybody gets really confused by this. Sympathy, empathy, what the hell are they? What's the difference, right? Sympathy involves basically understanding from your own perspective, right?
It's one directional.
So for you in your own eyes, the way you see the world, you can use sympathetic, whatever, based on what you've experienced.
You can feel bad about
Yes.
something. You may not understand exactly what they're feeling and
Yes.
going through because you haven't lived it, but you know that it's a hardship. You understand that. You feel bad for them.
Yeah.
That's sympathy.
Yes. Objectively speaking, you've never experienced it per se, but just you can use your own smarts to understand why this situation's tough. Empathy involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding why they may have these particular feelings. So instead of looking at somebody else's situation from your own external perspective, it's trying to actually, I don't know why I just use the word pretend to be them and what they're going through.
Yeah, you really try to immerse yourself in the situation mentally, right? As much as you are humanly capable, having never experienced it. So it takes a lot of effort, being very cognizant and purposeful about how you're thinking about it. So it's not like you can do it off the cuff.
Yeah.
Like it's a difficult thing for anyone who hasn't experienced that situation.
And what's tough about the work environment with this is it's really easy for somebody like me to look at this like another cheesy, stupid ass HR initiative, right?
Correct.
And we'll go into this later, but it literally is a waste of time to use this as a box checking exercise. Personally, my way of getting better at this was exactly what you described. Like I just got my ass whooped in life and needed empathy or just I experienced enough pain that you just know what that feels like and you can't possibly be cold to it. You know what I mean? Like I'm just incapable of doing that, and it's only because
you've gone to the edge. You can't forget
when
what
you're
that
in
looks
that
like.
spot, right? So, but we could talk about that a little bit. I love the psychology behind this, right? Because it's kind of like if somebody grows up with an alcoholic parent, how come some of them turn into massive alcoholics and others have never touched alcohol? Like what made them go one direction or the other? Are the lacking empathy, borderline sociopathic people, like are they that way because they were hurt
so
badly that they don't trust humans and they just literally shut emotions off? Or are they like that because they feel like that's almost like this, you're supposed to be a direct borderline dick of a manager? Meanwhile, we're celebrating something in the office. If you heard somebody screaming in the background, apparently.
Seriously.
But there's a lot of things that we don't know. But
there's a lot of theories with that. Obviously, we most of the time, from what I've read, that when managers refuse, or not even refuse, but are incapable of doing some of the things that we're going to talk about today, it has to do more with a power situation of being incapable and unwilling to relinquish control and power.
Because you have to be confident in yourself if you're not confident in yourself, then you're more likely to view giving your employees the level of empathy they may require as though they're either taking advantage of you or that you are weak.
Yes.
And a lot of times that's subconscious. You're not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into all of that because this is not necessarily a manager-employee thing. We're just going to use that in the context of the staffing world to be able to talk about it. And a lot of employees suck at this. I've mentioned this in previous, managers suck at this. I mentioned this in previous shows. I used to view management as just one of two things. Shocker, I was black and white. Who would have thought? You were either kind of the player's coach, nice guy, in the weeds. Everybody loves you. You're technically their boss, but you're as close to a coworker as you can be. Or you're basically the distant jerk dictator.
Correct.
And I learned
boss versus leader.
Exactly. And I learned very quickly that neither is the right answer. It's just a little bit of both based on the situation.
Yeah.
And then normally people utilize empathy based on we touched on this pre-show about the company culture behind it either makes this so easy to implement, or the battle of swimming upstream is incredibly difficult. And it almost always starts with from the top.
It 100% starts with the top. Everything that I was reading says that no matter what, you cannot long-term sustain empathy as a core value if it doesn't come from the top. And not just like they dictated that now empathy is a core value, but they live it. They're living empathy. Without doing that, you can't, because your managers can't be an empathetic leader or manager without having an empathetic manager, boss, CEO, owner. You just can't.
Are you like me, where you kind of just put large corporations in almost guaranteed to be sucky at this?
100%. No, but I've never worked for a very large corporation. I have in a limited capacity, but I've never been part of a cog in a massive corporation like that. Deliberately, because I prefer startups. This is my fifth, so it's just my style.
I give them a little bit of a pass, maybe more so than you'd think, and here's why I view it that way. The larger the company, the more you're playing a game of Monopoly as a business that requires you to be thinking at such a high level with 100,000 employees or whatever, that I can understand how they would instantly go to things like, if it's not in a process, we don't know how to handle it. If we can't document it and it's gray, we don't know how to handle it. We like having employee numbers, and we have massive layoffs on occasion. And almost to be able to grow the business, you have to have a smidgen of not letting yourself view every employee as a person, because you have to make business decisions that are going to hurt people sometimes, even if it's just a financial, I have to lay people off. Yeah. So I can see how companies or organizations almost make themselves a little shut off. But that notion might help you to grow the company, but that's why your culture sucks, because you've forgotten that everybody is a human that works for you.
Well, the problem now is post-pandemic. People aren't putting up with it anymore, though. So I keep hearing of people don't want to work anymore. People don't want to work how they used to work. That's the problem. I've read many articles and spoken with quite a few people about this, to be honest, and some people are the ones not working, and they're like, I'm not going back to that. Like, I'm not going to have no work-life balance. Yeah. I'm not going to struggle, because the 40-hour work week, the 8 to 5, whatever you want to call it, that schedule, that work construct was designed with the expectation that someone was at home taking care of things. It was designed a long time ago when there was a woman at home taking care of things, so taking care of the kids, getting the groceries, paying the bills, talking to people.
Well before technology even gave you the ability to even have the option.
Well before you could, to stay at home or whatever. So this 40-hour in the office work week was designed before that with that person at home. And so now that's not the case. I mean, that's the exception, not the norm, to have someone at home taking care of things. People have decided post-pandemic here that I'm not running myself ragged anymore for these companies. Like, I'm just done. And so that's where this shift and this discussion has really been born out of, is, well, no one wants to work. They want work-life balance. But how do we do this and treat them as we should while still maintaining the company goals, trajectory, and parameters that we need to feel secure in how we're managing our people? Yeah,
and I really view this as just the base of this is control. For sure. It just is. You're right. It's not necessarily manipulative control. It's just control in the sense of, how do I run this department, group, team, division, and without controlling every little factor. And
right.
And anybody listening out there that's spent at least a few years in the business world knows exactly what I mean, because we've all seen or been a part of the departments where they have made a business decision to micromanage a schedule or a process or whatever because they either don't trust the employees to do it, or that instead of empowering or figuring out a way to incentivize or whatnot to hit goals, it's just, we're just going to mandate this, dictate it, and shove it down your throat. And
Correct.
There's no flexibility. And if you break this, then that's an occurrence or you'll be fired. And there are departments like that, you know, I mean, 911 operators, they can't, somebody has to answer the phone. So clearly the schedule is incredibly important, you know, like.
Well, and with all of this, we're not talking about the jobs where you have to man a desk or a phone, where you need to physically be there for something. Those are different jobs, laborers and things like that, where like you're on the line. You can't just walk away whenever you want. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking office settings.
But that's what I was referring to as well. I mean, I've been a part of departments that their stance was we are going to control every little bit of this because that's the only way that we can ensure that everything is done the way we want it to be.
Inputs versus outputs.
Yeah, and I think what the world is learning is it's making people unhappy. It's stripping the humanity out of it. And now that some companies are figuring it out, people are empowered to say, I'm not going to work there anymore because I could find one. And good for them. I mean, hey, when you're looking for jobs, you should be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. And I think people are getting a little bit better at that.
Yeah.
You know, granted, the pandemic's effed, right? I mean, like, you had people working from home and companies are in a sticky spot. How do I get people back? What do we do? I mean, there's a lot of factors there, of course, but yeah, people learn like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could be good at my job and literally never walk in the door.
Correct.
You know, I was talking to a friend the other day who goes into the office once a week, and he was struggling with that in the sense that he knew damn well that the only reason was because like he was asked to. Like, there's not a business justification. But, you know, that manager might be looking for a level of connectedness, feeling like they are valued and at a minimum respected as a boss. And that might be a way that they can like ask for something small to get it back. But meanwhile, this person's really struggling because it's the one day of the week that they hate.
Correct.
You know, every Tuesday or every Friday, this sucks.
Correct. You know, everyone's got their opinions on remote and hybrid or fully in office. I think that, again, I don't think a company should have a blanket policy on this. I think kind of what you and I were talking about earlier today of you are managing humans, and every human is different. And so some people cannot work remote, or they can't work remote full time. I would be the one to admit I like some remote work, but I also need and want to be in the office. That is just part of who I am.
Same.
So if you told me our new policy is fully remote, we'd have a problem. Well, on the flip side, you have to understand that there are people on the other side going, I would hate being in the office. I need to be remote. I'm best remote. Okay, these are human beings. And the only reason I feel strongly about kind of how to manage and how this should be is because I did a lot of this stuff where I focused, when I had my team, I focused on outputs 90% of the time. Like I had to care about certain things because, again, from the top down, my boss cared about them.
Yeah.
But if I was owner or CEO and it said Amanda's, marketing agency on the door, I would be focused on outputs only. I don't care where you are or what you do. I want my clients happy. I want the work done. I don't care where you do it, what time of the hour it is. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just take care of the client. And because I don't need that control. I was very deliberate in who I interviewed and hired. I trust them to do their job. I'm going to leave them to do their job. And then it's up to them. It's their job to lose at that point. And that way, if something comes up, like their vehicle gets stolen,
What?
or just so you guys know, that happened to me.
Yeah. Damn near had your rental stolen too.
And rental issues and like all this stuff where I had to be gone during the day. Like there's only so many hours. And if you don't have a vehicle, you only have people willing to give you rides at certain hours. And like, there's just stuff that has to be done. Again, I still had to fit in my work and get stuff done. But like, that's where the empathy kind of comes in, or sympathy at its best, even of sympathy with action, is going, this is a human, this is a situation outside of this person's control. And you were wonderful, you were wonderful about it. And, but not every place would be that way. It'd be like, okay, well, then you need to take vacation. You only get 2 weeks in a year. And that's not there's no way to be a true human happily with max two weeks out of office.
I'm happy that you brought up vacation, because we unintentionally went down a rabbit hole of work remote, which is this is not about that, right?
No.
Like it's any situation. Like, so it doesn't matter what the hell the empathy is needed for, but I'm very deliberate with everybody to explain, we get 2 weeks of vacation. That's vacation. Go, leave. I don't believe in you have a dentist appointment on Thursday, so you need to use 2 hours of your PTO. I get why that would be used. And yes, we have an environment where, like you said earlier, we're not in this like production line, right? So we do have the ability, that does change things a bit. But, I want people to be gone and use the vacation to be gone, clear their head, leave work. Everybody, you come back better. Everybody needs it, whatever that looks like. And some people, from an empathetic boss perspective, actually struggle with stopping. So you almost have to be like, can you take a vacation? Get out of here.
I've had those. Where you have to force them to leave.
Yeah.
Because you can see the burnout coming.
Of course. So there's so many little things. And the biggest challenge for an organization is how to document this, how to implement how do you handle these situations? They're not black and white. It's not an easy equation. It's not a flow chart of if, then, yes, no statements.
It's not.
And that frankly is challenging for a big company to handle. And we're not necessarily here with the answers. We can give our opinions. I think if you're searching for the answer, that's half the battle, and then
you're already in the right direction.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
exactly.
One of the things that I did when I was managing, first off, you need to have managers that are managers, not working managers. So if you have accounts and all this stuff, like your managers should not be doing the job. Your managers are there to support, uphold, and like take care of the staff, the team. I was at my best when that was my role. It's when I started to get accounts and take things that everything went sideways.
Yeah. Well, your job isn't managing the people anymore.
No,
they become the nuisance.
Because you have accounts, you have this, you have work. But when I had no accounts, when I was truly managing, I never sat down in my desk. I was never in my office. All I did was float. I would go from office to office. You would see someone be frustrated and they weren't asking a question. You go over, hey, what do you need help with? Or someone's overwhelmed and you know it. And it's like, I can take on this portion. You're there to support your staff. That was when I was doing empathy in practice, and it worked.
Yeah,
it worked. And like I said, it only fell apart once I started to take on accounts. It was necessity because of COVID situations, but you need to understand that these people are, for the most part, trying their hardest. Like or at least they're trying. Like there's not a lot of people showing up to work just dicking around. Like there's obviously, I know you all have had a few. Like
Sure.
we've had some, but in general.
That was my MO in my early 20s.
In general, people are there to do a good job. They want the accolades. They want the success. Like they're trying to build their careers for the most part. So if you hire the right people and let them do their job, you just need to go there and be supportive. That was actually the easiest my job ever was, and not because it wasn't difficult, but it was very natural to me. It was very natural.
Sure.
And we had the lowest attrition. People were not leaving. They were very satisfied. Our client list was growing. We were selling left and right. Like it was going great.
Yeah.
So I do believe in that, but you have to relinquish control.
One of the coolest ideas that I heard of, if you're not familiar, there's a really cool guy out there on social, name one anyone, called Gary Vaynerchuk, and he goes by Gary V. He's kind of a little bit of a 21st century sales and motivational kind of guy. And he hired a CHO for his company. The title was Chief Heart Officer.
Oh.
And the idea was that person's job was to lead that effort in the company. And I think that was really cool. Maybe you can't do that. Maybe that's not practical in your company or in whatever. But that seems like a reasonable solution to have somebody in play that could be the person to help with these gray matters. So you have a document.
You're an advocate.
Yeah, you have a documented policy, employee manuals, or whatever the hell it is. So you can always reference that as a boss on what the actual quote unquote company procedures are. But what do you do when you have people that need either special circumstances, leeway, etc.? And a lot of those are tough. And I don't have a boss, so I get to make that call. It would be harder if I had a boss, because I would feel like if I'm going to be giving as much leeway as I feel this situation requires, am I given the support by my boss to give that to the person?
Correct. And
or am I going to be judged as a manager as weak or whatever because of this, right? And that's the top-down component. So if a company is breaking down with it, it's something in the executive level ranks is missing, and they've lost the humanity, and that just slowly but surely goes down to the bottom. But you could be a line level manager and implement this in your department and potentially foster some change if it really works to whatever degree.
The key is to not view, from when I was reading this article again, they talk about the fact that the more you consider empathy and the byproduct of it, maybe, of letting someone come in late or leave early or, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you start to view that as an allowance or
charity.
Yeah, like, okay, well, so-and-so requires all these allowances, but this person over here doesn't. That therein is where you struggle with, you're going to have a problem, because now the person that doesn't need any allowances is going to be the more desirable employee.
Yeah.
And you have to get away from thinking of it as an allowance and more of an adjustment to their humanness, because that's what's going on. Is, I was telling Jeremy earlier, if you had 5 people in a race and it was a running race, you get to this line, and then there's extra perks and benefits once you get to that line, but everyone is expected to get to the line. But the mode was you have to run there. Well, what happens when you have an employee who has one leg or no legs? Do you still require them to get to that same level? Well, that's okay. But maybe you need to give them a wheelchair or with a ramp, or like to continue with the metaphor, you have to consider it of like, well, while I want to keep everything fair, it's not. This man has no legs. It's no longer fair.
Yep.
And I think when you look at it from that light of going, okay, when someone comes to me asking me for an allowance, so to speak, on whatever it is,
Yeah.
they're not asking for special treatment. They're asking to get to the point where they can compete with those that have legs.
Yeah. You don't have no legs, Lieutenant Dan.
You got no legs.
Yeah, it's.
Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. I think if you need empathy, maybe you're in that spot right now. I would say as an employee, your prerequisite should be to keep yourself in good standing. You're not in a good place to receive those understandable requests or allowances if you're not fulfilling the basics of your job, right? So that's reasonable. But the pressure that people are under, the underlining psychology of whether or not they feel like they're being a good boss or a bad boss by doing those things can be really challenging. And no boss wants to feel like they're being taken for granted. Everybody has a line. Maybe they don't even know what it is, but eventually someone can push you over the edge or it goes too far. I implemented a weekly meeting with all of my employees right away. And I've always liked that because of a business justification. The thing that I undervalued at the beginning was what I learn in the relationship building with those people. Because those are the moments where I tend to hear stories more and more honestly about family or my marriage or my kids or my dog that's dying or my, I have to have this medical procedure or insert anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks are not comfortable bringing that up in group settings. A lot of them aren't comfortable bringing it up on one-on-one. So I kind of I like that mode because that's where I learn. So when somebody asks me for something, normally I already understand and kind of have a little bit of a thought of it.
Sure.
So I like the relationship building component to be a prerequisite because that's what allows you to kind of have an understanding of what people are going through. If you don't know, then you don't know.
Correct.
And if you have to develop a system, it needs to be a win-win. There are occasions where you feel absolutely justified in saying no, but that doesn't mean that you can't meet them halfway, whatever that is. Maybe they're asking for too much in your perspective, but you can design an alternate to their request or whatever.
Correct.
The empathy, I struggle with this sometimes too because I want to be understanding, and I can have moments where I'll be asking myself, am I being just too nice? Or is it possible that I'm afraid to say no? Or that what is that, right?
Yeah.
And I think other managers have the opposite, right? Like,
you can get fatigued. You
Yeah.
can get fatigued by this, especially the larger your team gets. I've been there where I was like, does everyone need allowances every day for something?
Well, when you manage a team, if you've never managed before, it would shock you how many friggin' requests you get from your people. Constant.
It's constant.
All over the board.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that because employees only have their own individual vantage point, and then the boss is trying to manage all of it.
Right. So they might ask for one or two things, but then if you have a team of 20, 25, and everyone's asking for one or two things, you're like, what the fuck?
And you could be the unlucky 18th employee of the day asking for something, and your boss just loses it, and it's not even your own. It's not even your fault. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Been there too. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
On the managerial side,
I've been
where you're like
both a bit. Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't say yes to one more thing. I swear to God.
So in the article itself, maybe I'm asking too pointed of a question, but did they kind of quickly get to the crux of what the main challenges are? Or was it not framed up that way? Like, why is implementing empathy a hard thing to do?
For two reasons, and we've touched on them a little bit. One, because they're seen as allowances, and we like frictionless people. We as a society, this isn't just American workplace, but America in general, like frictionless people. and situations.
Are you saying that people avoid conflict?
Yes, I am.
I think you are.
And so if someone is too different from the group and needing too many allowances, they're just
Problem child.
They're the problem child, and you don't see them as valuable as the frictionless or least friction people. And so that's why we have laws like protections for race, religion, gender identity,
FMLA,
all of it,
thing, yep.
because employers do tend, historically and still today, ideally, are looking for the frictionless. The other reason this is really hard to implement, and the crux of it, is the lack of willingness to give up power and control.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, have you never had some downtimes in your life? What the hell? You know what I mean?
But I've worked for people like this,
Me too.
where they just, even though they are going through tough times, I've literally had a boss going through like awful times, and yet had no empathy for staff of like, no, they're replaceable. If they can't do their job, then we'll just get a new person.
Yeah.
And they were like, I want them here at this time. I want them to stay till this time. They have to do X, Y, Z, non-negotiable.
And that's what I mentioned earlier. That's tough for the corporate policy people, because those things are needed. But the more you rely on policy procedure to run the organization completely, the more black and white, hard-lined you become, and it's challenging.
And it's too bad because, if you're to the workers out there, if you have a coworker who has maybe a different work schedule, or they have extra special equipment because of a situation that they, maybe a condition they have.
I hope you have one of those cool rising desks.
The standing desks.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just tell you, like, calm the fuck down?
Quit being an asshole.
Quit being an asshole. Can you? No, but I mean it.
I know you do.
I mean that. Of like, you have no idea what that person has to go through, that they have to. And do you think they were like, yay, I get special equipment, or like I have to be the weird one that can't work for more than 6 hours at a stretch?
Yep.
And I'm going to be working tonight when you're having your wine and watching Housewives.
Right.
Like,
meanwhile, I'm having to leave early and getting shit for it because I'm a single parent or something like that.
Guess what? You don't have to go through the hardships that that person is going through that requires them to need that. So just bugger off, do your job, and watch your own bobber.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yeah.
Like, I get it. I get it. I just get very frustrated when privilege, because being frictionless, and I'm quoting this as the term because they did too in the article, being quote unquote frictionless, where you don't have the need for these things, that is a privilege. Like that is fantastic for you. You didn't ask for it, but that's good for you. You don't need the allowances. You don't need the extra stuff. That is the better way. Like the person that needs it wishes they were you.
Yeah. And it's why it's illegal to like ask a woman if she's pregnant in an interview, right? Because they're like, that person will be discredited because they are perceived as anything from an insurance cost to a needing time off or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I have to give this person allowances, and now they're going to be out, and that's going to cause bup.
You want my opinion on the situation? The communication is everything to me. And anytime somebody asks for something, when they communicate and they're communicating clearly, it's heartwarming as a boss when you have somebody that it knows that they're asking for an allowance. They appreciate the fact that you've given them the flexibility, but they're going out of their way to figure out a way to not make up for it, but just give you the sense of comfort. If I get it, I'm not there, but I'm working on this. I'm figuring it out. Here's what's happening.
Well, no one wants to be a hot mess.
Yeah.
No one's wanting to. Now there's different things. Like I'm referencing stuff that potentially would be in control or fixable. There's plenty of things that are not. That you need allowances for or special equipment for, and that is A-okay. That's not necessarily what we're talking about here. It's maybe you're going through a divorce and you're a mess, or like I said, your car got stolen, or I've had my own issues.
Insert health condition here.
Correct.
Exactly.
Of like, hey, I want to get back up to speed quicker than you even want me to. That's ends up being the conversation of like, I don't want to be this way any more than you want me to be this way. So like, here's what I'm doing to fix it. And I think that communication is really important.
It's huge. It is for me, at least.
Conveying of, here are the steps that I'm taking. Here's what I need from you. And here's what I'm doing to also get better and get back to my old self, kind of a thing.
What else does your fancy article jump into? Thank God she's the research arm of this effort. Amanda and I had a really good discussion about Pyra several months ago in regards to this empathy thing, because I'm apparently good at this without really without being so deliberate. And I think it's just because of some of the shit I've gone through. But the good question that she posed to me was, how do we keep this as we scale? As we either open new locations or more managers are in play or whatever it might be. And I really think the answer is, in this case, me. Like, that's my responsibility. We have two core values here. One is intense transparency with internal and external. And then we have a culture of winning. This is the first time ever that I want to add a third. Right. So like, I don't want to have 94 of them and they lose their value.
Correct.
But that when we were talking earlier, that was my first thought of, how do I implement this moving forward? And it starts with me to be able to understand that. I could hold my managers below me accountable to have the relationships with these people so that they can adequately explain to me what's happening. And that way I can help that. So in my circumstance, my concern is, how do I top down lead that? Yep. Others might be in the situation of, how do you gain that from your superior, right? Mine's the opposite concern, because I want people to have a heart. I think people want to stay. I think people want to do well. I think you can avoid turnover and unhappiness and all kinds of things. And I'm not doing any of that stuff for credit, right? Like, people are just humans and shit happens like a lot.
You will find, in the past, people worked really hard for the parent company because they were promised to be taken care of at the end of their work life, pensions and things like that. Since that's been gone, we need a new thing to kind of rally behind. And so if you are a boss and you want people to have loyalty, you need to return it to them. Like, hands down, of going, I will be loyal to you. And no, it will not work every time. But like, if you, for instance, Jeremy, for Pyra Consulting, at this point, the things that you've done for a handful of us, like, there is a level of loyalty and a feeling of home.
Yeah, not you owe me.
No,
that's different. You don't owe me anything.
That's and that not what I'm saying.
But there's this inside deep in your heart that just kind of like it makes you want to be here. Yeah,
I want to be here. I feel safer now. Like, I feel almost like I have now the safety net of like, okay, they've got me. So in turn, I've got them. And you have to create that culture of, if you want loyalty, you better damn well give it back. And that goes for both employer and employee. Of employers, you can't demand people not quit and be loyal. But then, like, when they have a tragedy, you're like, well, you're out of PTO. Guess you're going to have to take it unpaid.
Yep.
Like, I'm sorry.
Hey, make sure that you bring that flyer back from the funeral for bereavement, you lying son of a bitch.
Exactly. How many grandmas do you have?
Right.
My grandpa was a whore.
Apparently.
But there are things that you can do. There are things that you can do to encourage this, though. If you want me to.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Fire away.
So there's a few things, because you were wondering, like, how do we scale this a little bit, or not scale, but keep this, right? We were talking about that.
Yeah, kind of protect it, per se.
Well, one of the things that you can do is kind of what we're doing is talk about it. You need to talk about empathy to signal its value. So if you do hire a manager and empathy is a core value, that has to be a discussion about what does that mean? What does that look like? And that it's not just a buzzword.
Yeah.
It is a way of managerial and a way of life here. You also have to teach listening skills, which can be hard. I don't have the answer for you on how to teach listening skills, but
Yeah.
that would be, you have to be able to listen without worrying about what you're going to say next.
Sure.
That's something that I don't think any of us really do. I mean, we're really like, as soon as someone's talking, you're thinking about what am I going to respond with, especially with recording like this,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to be on your toes and thinking. And so teaching people to listen for understanding versus listening to get to know their response.
Hey, I'll throw this out there. I would even argue you can do this selfishly. Like you could implement this in your team for you. If you look at this the right way, where you're utilizing, you could even just utilize that as a tactic of how to ensure that your team wants to be here, and that maybe you're worried about the attrition.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're struggling with your heart in that moment because it's a little cold or closed off, then shit, if you need to fake it till you make it, that's a good way to get started. Of, I value this person being here. I'm annoyed that they need blank, but I don't want to replace them. I don't want them to leave, and I will allow them to do this even though I'm kind of biting my tongue. Start there if you need to.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I mean, you whatever you got to manipulate yourself to do, because that stuff matters. Being a human in it, and that's what I said at the beginning. I feel like the bigger companies get, the more that they almost convince themselves that they have to remove the humanity to do what they're doing, and I just disagree.
You don't.
I think you can do both at the same time. Damn right, there's going to be people that take advantage of you, and they should be fired for that,
Correct.
right? Whatever that looks like.
Correct.
And you might have given leeway, and all of a sudden, 6 weeks later, you're running out of patience, and if you're going to have to communicate that hey, what I told you 2 months ago or 2 days ago or whatever, I'm like, that's not we can't do it anymore for this reason. Or we need to figure out a way to start scaling that back. So can we phase you back, whatever the hell the situation is? Or maybe it's such a catastrophe that they're just not in a good position to be working for you at that moment.
Literally had this happen. So I, like I said, I managed to outputs, not inputs, and I was strong about that. But everyone knew if you broke my trust, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like I would absolutely, like, you're an adult, you're doing your job. When we went fully remote, I had a gentleman who did take advantage and like made his partner do all the work, his work buddy, and then would lie to me about what they were doing. And I basically was like, you should not be working here anymore. Like this is not, I will give you every allowance as an adult and a human, but you break my trust and you lie to me, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. Exactly.
And it was. Yeah, I was like, get the hell out of here. And he knew it because he handed in his resignation the next day.
Shocking.
So, yeah. Last few little bits here, just real quick. Stop rewarding toxic rock stars.
Oh, that's a fun little term.
Fuck,
they're everywhere, aren't they? The badass in the group that is so good that
they get away.
You can't get rid of them. You have to have them, but they're just jackasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop rewarding toxic rock stars. Encourage genuine perspective taking, and cultivate compassion, which comes
I'm sorry.
from
Repeat that again. Sorry. Seriously, the first sentence again.
the encourage.
Yeah.
Encourage genuine perspective taking.
Perspective taking.
Meaning
Okay.
managers should consistently put themselves in the other person's place. It could include taking into account the personal lived experiences or perspectives of the employees.
So if a manager came to me and was explaining something about an employee that was needing whatever, and they were kind of whining about it. One thing that I could do would be to say, if that was happening to you, what would you
What do you
hope
think that feels
for?
like?
What would you hope? Like, what would you hope your company would do for you, or what type of leeway would really be helpful?
I would start one step back further.
What do you got?
Before you got there?
Okay.
Is going, okay, so and so is going through whatever. What do you think that's like for them? And just be silent and like make them think about it and answer you of like, well, it's probably like this. Okay. So if they're experiencing that, what do you think would be helpful from an employer? Not that they have to ask, but maybe that you're offering. Because I am telling you what, it is hard to ask for those things. So if you as a manager or a boss are seeing these things happening of someone's looking like they're going to burn out, like you, because you can see it, or you notice that they had tears in their eyes coming back from break or whatever it is, like, what would you offer to that person in that moment versus making them come to you? That is where you really step up to the next level of like being an empathetic. And I think that's where you can encourage the genuine perspective taking of going, one, put yourself in their shoes. And then two, what would you wish your manager came to you with as a solution?
Yes. Also, if you're going to ask for something, why don't you do the same in return? So maybe if you're asking your boss for something, come with an idea. I would like to propose blank. I don't know if you think this is a great idea or a terrible idea. I'm just thinking this might be feasible because we got a department to run, but I need to be able to do this. So what's a win-win for everybody? What does that look like?
It goes both ways.
I 100%. I mean, and nobody wants to do that.
No.
It's humiliating.
It is.
It's embarrassing. It's so humbling because you feel so small. You're afraid of the no. You don't know what response you're gonna get. Those are tough spots, right? Even when I feel like I can be approachable, I feel like I'm approachable. God knows if other people think that way. I mean, you can convince yourself that you're pretty kick-ass at everything.
I always thought I was very approachable.
Yeah.
Turns out I am not.
Well, I said to one of my newer employees the other day, Teresa, I was like, hey, I never told you this. You're new here, and I like your perspective. Let me know what you see. Like, good, bad, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you want to compliment me, great. If it's bad, let me know. And she's like, okay, I'll do that. And I go, no, I'm serious. Like, you don't understand. Nobody tells me shit. You know what I mean? Like,
other than me, I yell at you about.
Well, sure, but like, I would appreciate that, but I also understand it's not the easiest thing to do. I was flat out fired. I was plenty of things, but that was one of them in the sense that I was the rare type that was willing to go to my boss and tell him the things that I would want to know if I was him.
Correct.
And that was not received very well.
Yeah.
I thought I was being helpful.
Delivery again.
Oh, trust me, my tack probably sucked.
Yeah, because
terrible.
I had to do this again. You can manage up, and maybe we're getting off topic, maybe not. But like,
I don't know.
I had to do that with my previous employer of kind of be like, well, how do I convey some of this of like you're being an ass, and you're being an unempathetic ass. And I had to, especially during the pandemic. There were a few times where I'm like, think of it. I had to just put it into business terms sometimes of like, if you don't do this, we will get sued and you will lose your business. How's that?
Yeah.
Better? Okay, we'll go with my way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes if you don't, well, maybe that's a good suggestion. If you have a boss who's not empathetic, see if you can put some of the stuff into terms of business, in business terms that he or she would relate to, that will still get you what you want. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak.
Yeah, what a weird ass phrase.
I know, but I love it.
These cats.
I know.
God, you sadistic bastards. That's what
Poor kitties.
That's how Jeffrey Dahmer got started, you psychopaths.
What's another saying? I don't even know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just, it's
Skin a cat.
skin a cat. I mean, apparently cats get skinned a lot. I don't know.
Ugh.
So hey, if you know you're on the end of the spectrum of being more of a hard ass, and you're listening, ask yourself, where could I baby step this a little bit? If you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're incredibly understanding, but you might struggle with that, how can I figure out a way to feel like I'm getting my needs met while I'm accommodating somebody else or whatever? And my favorite psychologist, Dr. Glenn, I love you. There's no chance you're listening, but I wish you were. He really helped me through this because he would say, every time you have a situation where you have two options and both of them don't seem right, that's correct. Like, just accept that. Like, it's not one or the other. It's probably some weird combination of the two.
Correct.
So if an employee is asking you for the moon, the solution is not to say yes, nor is it to say no to all of it. Like, what makes sense?
What makes sense?
This world is so flexible in that regard. Use your smarts and see, maybe just give it a shot and see if it works. If you're kind of a dick about this out there, or a bitch about it, let's do a little bit of both sides. Ask yourself if you're that way because of needing a level of either power or respect or
control,
whatever. And why do you not feel that you have it? Or why do you feel that you have to be that person to be the boss that you need to be?
Because I would challenge you at that point, if you really don't believe that your people will do their job without being micromanaged,
cracking the whip,
then I apologize, but it comes back to you again. Stop hiring the wrong people. It comes down to it. If you hire the right people and give them the tools that they need and the allowances, if you will, that they need, they will do a good job. And if they don't, you are then entitled to let them go and then go hire someone who will.
Yeah.
Like, anyone who's like, I have to micromanage or else the things won't get done, well, then you messed up.
Yeah.
Then you messed up. Because
I would also say that you're just I would encourage you not to micromanage, because the control fosters lying too.
Correct.
Which I can't stand, in the sense that if I'm building processes where it's so that I'm using fear as the way to implement them, even the people that are complying, that shit ain't working, and half the people are bullshitting you anyways. So we'll continue to talk about this as an interwoven topic, but managing with empathy has now been solved. We have absolutely figured it out. You're very welcome.
There you go.
Yeah,
we solved all the world's problems.
Totally. What a great show. So we're going to come back again with another episode here. We basically drop a minimum of 2 shows a month.
We try, yes.
I think in April there was 3. So let us know how we're doing. And check us out online. Show notes is a good place to be. Social media. If you happen to be in the market for a new position and you're in the IT field, we can personally help you at Pirate Consulting. But this show is kind of bigger than that in the sense of what we're trying to do. Give us some feedback if we screwed something up. Completely disagree. Really good ideas that you have about the empathy thing or things that work for you. Throw it out there. We'll pimp the hell out of you on social for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we'll keep going, apparently, with no feedback, thinking we're awesome, and go from there. All right, we'll see you again next time, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Hire Fire podcast, brought to you by Pirate Consulting. Check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or online at pirateconsulting.com. That's PIRA consulting.com.